Buenos dias. Hello. Hello, this is John Briscoe, your congressional candidate for the 42nd Congressional District, stretching from Long Beach, Lakewood, Signal Hill, all the way through Bellflower, Downey, Bell Gardens, Huntington Park, Cudahy, and Maywood, and also the city of Vernon. I'm here today to share with you perspectives and ideas and viewpoints so that you can vote for me next week on November 8th, on Tuesday. I'm appearing to ask you for your vote.
Ok, perfecto. Buenos días.
Buenos dias.
¿Cómo está usted ahora?
Bien, ¿y tú?
Qué bueno, me da gusto que estés con nosotros otra vez. Vamos a platicar de tu proyecto, de tu idea y a dónde quieres llevar a la comunidad hispana y de qué manera quieres ayudar. Pero antes de entrar a platicar contigo, me gustaría que me dijeras algo de el Día de los Muertos, ya que nosotros los hispanos somos, yo puedo decirte que los hispanos mexicanos, el 85, el 80% somos católicos, apostólicos romanos. Por eso me gustaría que dijeras algo de los Días de los Muertos.
Mi niño español necesito, I need help over here.
We are really happy that you are here today. Thank you for being here. Before we get started, we'd like to hear a little bit of your perspective on the Day of the Dead. You know, as Hispanics, most of us are strong Catholic believers, and so we want to know, what is your take on Dia de los Muertos? You want to share with us?
I'm part Mexican. I can claim that. Mi tatabuela came from Baja California into California, from the lower to the upper, and the rest of my family is history from there. In fact, my mother's side is all immigrants. Both of her parents immigrated here, and she didn't speak English until she was 4 years old. I am an immigrant family. My son's married to an immigrant from China, of all places. So I understand the cultural experience across continents, across the globe, and across the border. Dia de los Muertos is a fun, exciting day based on a very serious religious tradition. Many people don't understand that Halloween and Dia de los Muertos is a day based on the Bible and teaching and beliefs and cultures. And Dia de los Muertos is especially fun with the dressing up and the idea that we can talk and feel good about our ancestors and the spirit world. Believers believe in spirits, in the glory and the goodness of believing. That's what they call it. That's what they call being a believer is all about, believing. And Halloween is kind of a takeoff on that. I have my Halloween tie on today because it's a joyous day, a day of celebration. It can be a day of serious religious and faith. It can be a day of serious fun, dressing up, Dia de los Muertos and the skeletons and the dead. It can be a day of Halloween trick-or-treating as Superman or Batman. And the kids love it. It's very important to have some fun and joy in life, and Halloween brings that after school's been in session for a while. So Dia de los Muertos and Halloween are important, fun days. They're not a holiday, but they're fun days and give us all a break and a time to enjoy life and smile and laugh out loud.
Ok, Jack, me parece muy bien qué bien que este señor está involucrado en la familia, en los niños. Ahorita habló de los niños, que para los niños es muy divertido el día de Halloween. Para nosotros nos recomienda que vistamos a nuestros niños de monjitas, de padrecitos, de santos. Y yo miro en la calle, pues monstruos ahí que andan asustando a los niños. No creo que es normal eso.
It's really interesting that you're saying the kids to have a lot of fun. We love that you are all about kids and making sure that our kids are having fun. You know, as Hispanics, most of the costume ideas for us that were, you know, kind of pushed down on us was, you know, you should dress your kids as priests or nuns or stuff like that. It's really fun, though, to see kids walking around with monster masks and just really having a fun time right now.
Well, we have a problem, or an opportunity, in our society of a declining participation in communities of faith, believers. The Catholic Church membership is down, and the Catholic Church attendance is way down. Protestant churches, the mainstream Presbyterian, Methodist, and Lutheran, both membership and attendance is way down. How do people connect with their spiritual being and what they stand for? I'm a believer. I'm a sinner. I've been forgiven. I plan to go to heaven. How do we help we can't do it in schools, how do we help people come to engage with their spiritual and belief self when people are walking away from those sources. Some of the evangelical Protestant groups are actually growing, but that's not enough to make up. And then the children are left at the bottom. In Mexican tradition, the school, la escuela, mentors and teaches the children what to learn, how to do their school duties of reading, writing, and arithmetic. The family, the familia, is responsible for feeding, clothing, loving, and church and faith. So one of those responsibilities is diminishing in our society, I'm sorry to say. So I would encourage everybody listening to contemplate, think about, at least bringing your children to church. Bring them to a place where they might learn about what faith is and what their spiritual being is, not just once a year for Dia de los Muertos or Halloween for dressing up in candy and scary clothes, but what is their faith and spiritual self for the rest of the year? And if you're not an expert at explaining those things, the church is. So I'd recommend that as a spin-off from the Dia de los Muertos and the Halloween, it could be a chance to bring yourself and your family to a new point in your relationship with God. So that will end my conversation on that particular topic, but I would encourage it.
Me parece muy bien. Ahorita que está hablando de eso, John Briscoe, me gustaría que, pues ahorita todos los principios de nosotros los hispanos, que consideramos principios buenos para la familia, pues estamos siendo atacados realmente from Washington, from Briscoe's opponents. Their mentality es completamente diferente a la de nosotros. Ya no podemos decir un prayer in school, ya no podemos decir una oración en un sport game, ya no podemos, todo eso nos han quitado. Nos quieren quitar más, necesitamos ayuda, necesitamos que John Briscoe ofrezca un paquete completo que nos quieren borrar del mapa, nuestras tradiciones, nuestros objetivos están ahorita bailando con el partido oponente que John Briscoe está corriendo, ¿me entiendes? Necesito que él nos ofrezca un paquete completo de la cancelación de por tu color, de que cambiar el nombre de la ciudad porque tiene un nombre religioso, tal. ¿Qué sentido tiene todo esto? ¿A dónde vamos a llegar? ¿A quitar las estatuas de Washington? ¿Y qué está pasando? No es normal. Pero todo viene por los políticos que están ahorita en poder, ¿cierto?
You know, we feel like really a lot of our traditions and a lot of our cultural things and things that represent our culture are really being taken away. It's sad to see that a lot of the things that we stand up for, the values, the cores, the prayers, religious, statues that you see at different places, you can't really even feel now that you can express your values without feeling like you're under attack, especially by your opponent. We feel that we want you to present a full package. What are you going to do to ensure that our values and that our community feels that we can stand up for what we believe and that we do have a place at the table and that we are allowed to express the way we feel and think without feeling in any way under attack.
That is a lot to talk about and think about. I would go to the beginnings of this country, the best place on the face of the earth to live.
Perfecto, esa historia muy importante.
Our country had all kinds of religions when it was founded in 1776 and the Constitution was written. We had one state, Maryland, was a Catholic state. Maryland, hence Maryland, the state of Maryland was meant to be a Catholic colony. The large majority of the residents in the United States were Protestants from the Anglican Church, but there were Jews and there were a very few number of Buddhists. There were people of all kinds. So when the Constitution was written, when our country was founded, the founders said the government will make nobody one religion. There were people that wanted to make the whole country Protestant, make it all Anglican. And they said no, the government will support no single religion. Everybody can be whatever religion they would like. Well, that's important. There is nothing in the Constitution that says a separation of church and state. Nowhere in any constitutional basis is there a separation of church and state. The only separation is you can't make people be a Catholic. You can't make people be a an Anglican or a Jew, which is good. So today, what we have are people who want to make everybody nothing, with no basis and no values. The court cases that we've had about that you mentioned relate to prayer in school. So is it appropriate and good to have a Catholic prayer in a elementary school where children are still very young and learning, and make them all pray, bow their head, cross themselves? Well, the courts say no. But you can do that at your Catholic school, at your local parish, of course, every day, and several times a day. Prayer is always appropriate. I went to, my neighbors are Vietnamese and very, very devout Catholic, and they invited me to one of their family birthday parties. One of the older members of the family, they were all refugees and came to the United States from Vietnam. The adults, the kids were born here. They said the Lord's Prayer spontaneously 6 or 7 times during the day. Just out of nowhere, the grandpa would say, let's all say the Lord's Prayer. It was an interesting experience. That's not my religious experience, but I found it uplifting. It's okay to say the Lord's Prayer several times during the day in a family celebratory event. Is it okay to make children pray the Lord's Prayer before the start of a football game? The courts say no. The courts have recently said, though, that it's okay after the game is over, when they're all done and finished, for the coach to say a prayer on his own. And the students may or may not take a knee, they may or may not join the prayer, they may or may not bow their heads. But it's okay for a coach to have religious faith and belief and express that after the game's over, after the context of the government forcing people to have a religion. It's a very complicated matter. It's not real easy, but that's my view on it, and I agree that making children practice one kind of prayer or another during the school day, in class, except for parochial, private, or homeschooling, is probably not fair to the other religions that don't get it, but it is okay after. It's okay to be a religious person and teach at a school and share one's faith without being a preacher, basically, and forcing yourself on people. So if that helps understand and explain things, that
eso se está perdiendo también, todo eso ya no.
We are asking specifically about Thanksgiving. You know, it is very traditional that during Thanksgiving you do a prayer and you do think for things. How do you feel about that? Do you think that that's important? And are you then saying that you are okay, obviously expressing your faith in a private setting, but you also understand that maybe in public settings it might not be necessarily appropriate, though you are a religious man or you are a believer?
I think expressing my faith is appropriate anywhere, any place, any day, any time, just for the record. And I am, soy un poquito indígena. I am part Native American. I had the gene test. I didn't even know I was part Indian, but I am. And the Indian religions are different than the European Christian religions and different than the Asian Buddhist religions. It's an interesting situation, but there's all different aspects to it. Thanksgiving is a day to give thanks. And the Native Americans, the Indians, and the Pilgrims got together and had a great day of Thanksgiving and feasting together and thanking God. And by the way, the majority of Native Americans today are believers, as a side note, on the reservation. But it's, no, it was a great day of Thanksgiving to God. Public schools have a set of different rules. I'm an elected school board trustee for 16 years. 4 times elected by the people, for the people, with the people, to help run a school district with 4 other trustees. We've done great things in our district. Public schools have very specific state laws that prescribe and prohibit, absolutely, certain faith and practice activities. And one of those is prayer. I personally stood up in public comments at my school board meeting for several years and gave a prayer, a request for God's blessing on our meeting and making us wise as we could possibly be. And it turns out there's state laws against that. So those are things that could be changed, but right now not. However, city councils, water boards, county boards of supervisors, they all can have a prayer. And in fact, the city I live in starts every meeting off at their city council meetings with a prayer from a Jewish rabbi, a prayer from a Catholic priest, Franciscan usually, a prayer from a Protestant, they have a prayer to start the meetings off every single council meeting. I think that's fantastic. School boards are not allowed to do that, as it turns out. Specifically, can't start the meeting out with an official person to give a prayer. And I don't agree with that, but that's what the state law is, and that's the state of confusion we live in. Does that answer your question about Thanksgiving?
Sí, señor, muy bien. Quisiera hacerle una pregunta. John Briscoe tiene idea de su rival. ¿Cuál es la propuesta de él? ¿Qué es lo que está proponiendo para los hispanos? Esta pregunta es muy importante. Quiero que elabore exactamente si sabe la propuesta de su oponente.
This is a really important question. Do you know any of your opponent's proposal for specifically our culture and how he is stating that he is going to represent us? Do you know anything about his platform and specifics that he has proven out there that you'd like to share with us?
I'm not an expert on my opponent and what he does, thinks, and says. However, he is a Peruvian, and Peruvians are not the same as Mexicans, just for the record. Their cultural experience, the impact of Spain on their country, which is very Spain-centric, and the nature of their governance, the Peruvian experience is very different. So his background is Peru, and it's not Mexico, it's not Guatemalan, it's not Salvadoran, it's Peruvian. And they're literally a continent apart, and they're miles and miles apart from the experience of the two. Mexico has a far longer existence of experience because they've been there longer, from the landing of Cortez and the conquest of Mexico. Mexico's had much longer to develop its own traditions. They don't eat Mexican food in Peru. If you ask Peruvians about their delicious tacos and their wonderful tamales and their fantastic spicy deliciousness with jalapenos, they would look at you like you're from the planet Mars. They would say, no, we don't use those things. We have meat that we cook and we grill, and we have potatoes. Peru is big on potatoes, by the way, from the indigenous experience. That's where the potato came from. So it's, no, Peru is, and my opponent is Peruvian. And there's none, there is no cross-cultural.
So, señor Jan Briscoe, Briscoe, para empezar, la cultura de su oponente es completamente diferente a la de nosotros, que somos mayoría ahorita aquí en los Estados Unidos.
So if what you're saying is correct, his culture is not even close to anything that represents the district, which is 50% Hispanics. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it is. He has an Hispanic name, Garcia, but after that, his cultural experience is far different than mine. My experience is Mexican, and growing up, it's not his experience. His is a Peruvian experience.
Perfecto. Qué bueno que estamos llegando a esta clase de conversación acerca de su oponente, porque en realidad yo no conozco la plataforma de ese señor. No sé a qué se dedica, en qué dedica su tiempo, si tiene familia, tiene hijos, no sé si tenga hermanas. Sé que me di cuenta que tenía mamá y papá, parece que ya fallecieron los dos, pero de ahí en adelante no tiene hijos. Este señor, que su rival no tiene hijos, no tiene familia.
Does your opponent have a family? Do you know anything about his family background or anything like that you could share with us?
The family background that my opponent has is what he has published, and that's all that I know. He came to the United States with his mother, and she obtained legal status when they got here, and then he grew up here. I think he came here at, I believe I read, age 12. So he'd grown up in Peru and then came here with his mother. I believe he has a stepfather. I don't know what happened to his father. It could be his real father. They're both dead. They died of COVID recently, and I'm sorry to say it's a terrible disease. My brother had COVID, and it was a mild experience, except for his leg, which had screws and pins and needles in it from an accident that he had, and it was the most excruciating, awful experience, he'd ever had, because COVID is an inflammatory disease. It went to his leg, inflamed it. He wasn't suicide contemplating, but he was pretty close to it. So anybody that's had COVID, I'm sorry, and I hope it's mild. His parents died of COVID. And so today, he lives with his friend or his husband or, I don't know, companion. I don't know exactly what his status is because it's none of my business. And they live in Long Beach, and he's very active in parades and events and celebrations and things. And I'm not at those events. So he has a companion that he stays with.
Pero no tiene hijos.
No children?
Oh, no
Okay.
children.
Perfecto. Okay. En la plática que estamos platicando ahorita me gustaría que él otra vez me proyecte su proyecto, la oferta que tiene para nosotros los hispanos, qué es lo que esperamos de él, porque es muy importante que nos siga él platicando de su proyecto, sus ideas, lo que va a hacer, lo que promete, para que nosotros los hispanos votemos por él. Y a toda la gente que lo está escuchando ahorita a través de Facebook, es muy importante que decidan ustedes estar en su momento de decidir. No se preocupen por partidos. En este caso ya no se trata de hablar de un partido, si eres del azul o del colorado, se trata de ver por qué vamos a votar y por qué vamos a votar, si tiene principios la persona, si tiene creencias, si cree en la historia de este país, porque yo creo que un país en donde ya no se enseña, ya no se teaching la historia, en realidad se deja al olvido todo eso y deja de existir el país. Y para mí es exactamente lo que este partido que está ahorita en el poder está tratando de hacer, borrar la historia y empezar de nuevo. Y cosa que no tiene sentido. Me gusta más la historia de antes, la que yo viví en los 60s. ¿Me entiendes? Ayer que hablaba de él, de Lyndon B. Johnson, me estaba dando cuenta de que hay unos comentarios de que el mismo presidente de esa época, Johnson, dijo: démosle asistencia pública a la comunidad y ellos van a votar por nosotros por 100 años. So, ellos sabían exactamente lo que estaban haciendo. Darles asistencia pública a toda esta gente, ellos era el voto seguro. Y para mí es exactamente lo que están haciendo ahorita.
I think it's really important for the public to really understand your platform and really forget about party affiliation. This is not about party affiliation, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or a red or a blue. It's more important at what your values are and what you bring to the table, the integrity that a candidate has. And I think more than ever, it is really important for our public to really understand what they're voting for and to be confident that the candidate they select represent their values and what is important to them. It's interesting that, our history is continuously being erased because of political, people that are in power. They're forgetting the true history of our country. And it's like they just want to erase it all and start from fresh and start all over again. And history is history, and it does repeat itself. So, voting does have consequences, and the choices that we make can be extremely dangerous if we don't pay attention to those things. But more importantly, you mentioned yesterday President Johnson, saying give welfare and give welfare assistance, and he knew at that time that guaranteed that they would have a group of people that will continue to vote for them based on that mindset. So it is really important that people elect candidates that, again, represent their core values, what is important to them. So again, if you can share with us your platform, what are the things that are important to you? What are you promising the community that you are willing to do as a congressman for the 42nd district?
Muy bien.
Wow, that's why I could speak about that for the next 3 hours, but I won't. Really, I'll just keep it short. You mentioned Johnson. He put in the Great Society Welfare Program. It wasn't the welfare part that was such a problem, because people need help periodically to get back on their feet. What he put in was a system that required there to be no daddy at home to collect the welfare based on children, which created this giant surge of families without a father in communities of poverty. And it's just awful. Today, they've removed, the Clinton administration removed some of those in their changeover, but today, people don't know this, but 50% of black babies, 50% of the African American babies are killed. They're aborted. 50%, 1 in 2. We know that because abortions are tracked by race and births are tracked by race. And it's a simple calculation that does not include the part A and B next day after pill. So these are horrible impacts on the community, from having families with no daddies and paying welfare based on baby count to killing the babies, basically. These are serious matters, and that's a very serious matter to me. My main platform, though, isn't about women's decisions to handle their health situation related to pregnancy, although I do have opinions about that. My main platform consists of three things. One is inflation. The biggest problem, the residents of the 42nd Congressional District, my people, you, is inflation. 10% inflation. The Dollar Tree is the $1.25 store now. Housing prices are up 28%. That means that your children can't afford a house. They'll have to rent for the rest of their life. Gas prices are up well through the sky. I paid $7 a gallon for gas last week. These are terrible things. We can't live like this. Up every year, 10% and more in the case of gas. So inflation is the biggest problem, and inflation comes from the U.S. Congress passing budgets, spending money they don't have, printing money that doesn't exist, and flooding the economy with dollar bills that make everybody have more money in their pocket and the same stuff to buy, which makes the prices go up. Every time you do that, the prices go up. You cannot stand. If you have savings, your savings are worth 10% less in the bank, because the 10% inflation just takes the life out of that money. The second platform I'm working on is education. I am the education candidate. It's parent choice. As a parent, a grandparent, a guardian, you have a right to choice in your children. It's your job and responsibility to raise your children. If you're going to go get a divorce and go to court, the judge doesn't take your children and pluck them out and give them to a care agency. The judge says, you're both responsible. You made the child. You both take care of it, each, even as separately. Your job as a parent is to take care of your children, and you have a right to choices to do that. And I'm an advocate of those choices. You should have a right to go to a private school, a parochial school. Our Catholic churches have wonderful schools. You have a right to homeschool, and you have a right to a charter school. Charter schools are free. And then you have a right to the public school. And in public schools, I say you should have the right to choose whatever school district you want, whatever school district. Beverly Hills, Palos Verdes, San Marino, take your pick. You should have a right to choose the school site in the district you want to go to, and not be stuck with a lousy school in the poor neighborhood when you want your child to go to the really good school on the other side of town. You should have a right to request your teachers by name. Some school districts will take your request and tear it up and throw it in the trash can in front of your face and tell you you're only the parent, you don't know what's best for your child for the teaching. Parent choice is very important to me. I'm in education for 16 years elected, 4 terms. I know something about these things, and that's my advocacy, parent choice. And third is family safety. And the first point of family safety is don't defund the police. What an idiot. What idiot thought of defunding the police? Our police forces already had openings left and right before that idiot idea came up of defund the police. We already didn't have full police forces hired and in place. Then they came in and defunded and cut them back. How does that make our families safe? Do you like parking your car on your lawn because you can't park it on the street because somebody will break into it and steal from it, or steal the whole car? Do you like living in a house like we have to, with bars on the windows to keep people out who don't belong there, when you're hard at work during the daytime, or when you're sleeping at night, somebody wants to come in and rob you? No, the bars aren't going away, and the fenced yards aren't going away, but it's not the lifestyle that is a crime-free life. I want our communities of Maywood, Cudahy, Huntington Park, Bell and Bell Gardens, and Downey to be safe. We need police. Along with that, we don't need homeless people. So the other half of my family safety, so it's inflation, the prices are too damn high, it's parent choice, and the last is family safety, is the homeless problem. And I have solutions for that I can share with you at a later date, but we have things we can do right now to cut down on the growing surge of people sleeping, urinating, defecating, and everything else on our public sidewalks and public spaces.
Bravo, bravo. Estamos entrando en un área calientita. Ahora, en términos de migración, we have a big problem.
Calientita.
Yo pienso que el partido que está en poder ahorita, el azul, tiene un proyecto muy grande. That's my thinking, okay? Es mi pensar. porque están dejando entrar a millones y millones de gente y le están dando, comida, asistencia, housing, and all that stuff. Están haciendo lo mismo que hicieron back en los 60s con Johnson, otra administración del Partido Azul. A mí se me hace que ahorita están cultivando ellos algún proyecto que no tienen porque quieren que esta gente vote por ellos. ¿Qué opinión tiene él de eso? Y en cuestión de, hablando de partidos, ¿qué piensa él que este señor que tenemos ahorita en la Casa Blanca va a seguir sacando la gasolina de la reserva? Algo que nos platique de eso.
What do you think about the current party in power? Do you think that they, by allowing, immigration, let me start by saying immigration is a big issue. We know it is. We do feel that the party currently in power is allowing a lot of immigrants to come across the border with the thought process that they will have more voters for them by providing them housing, food assistance, and a lot of other things. Do you believe that this is kind of something that they're planning and this is why they're allowing such things to happen? And if so, do you believe that there should be something done about it?
We own our border. It belongs to us, the United States of America, and the people who live here and pay for it. It's our border to guard and control. And we're not controlling our border. Truly, people, they're called getaways. When you listen to the reports, there's 4.2 million or more people who've come across that border in the last 2 years. That's it, 2 years. Without permission, without application, just come up and walked across the border. 1 million of them are getaways. They came across and ran very fast. You have no idea who they are, what they are. A whole bunch of terrorists and really bad people have been caught coming across the border. How many of those getaways in that million count were terrorists and really bad people? We own the border, we must control our border, and we must decide who comes across and the terms and basis for them coming across. So as a congressman, it's our job, my job, to vote for money. Congress approves the money. The president doesn't approve money, the Senate doesn't approve money, the Supreme Court doesn't approve money, none of the agencies approve money. Only Congress can approve money. And as your congressman, my job will be to look at how we approve money. And I say we need to approve a whole lot of money, to put in a whole lot of judges so we can adjudicate, look at, and decide the immigration cases for these people coming across. Because people are coming across claiming asylum from horrible conditions. Conditions that are legally defined as allowable to be coming into the United States as a refugee. But we don't have enough judges, and the judges don't work very fast either, it turns out. So they release these people, 4 million people, into the United States, flying them, busing them, taking them all over the country at night, and they are required to appear back in court. If the court can ever find them to send them a notice, they never get adjudicated. We need to have people, judges at the border, U.S. judges, to listen to their case. They get to have a lawyer to explain their case so they can say, yes, you can come in. Please come in. You're a victim from asylum, being treated badly, being persecuted for your political beliefs or your religious beliefs, or not, and you need to go back home. We don't have that now. So as a congressman, I will vote for judges, lots of them, on the border to help all these people see if they are here legally or not, if they can come in under U.S. law. And our laws are very generous. We take in more refugees in this country than any other country on the face of the earth. Nowhere else takes more refugees in than we do, legally and not coming in with a requested permit and a form filled out. So I say we should put in a whole bunch more judges with money from Congress. We're spending billions in Ukraine. You think we could spend billions on the judging system so a judge can look at each person when they're crossing the border and say, what's your story? And then say, yes, you can stay, or no, you can't stay, and be done with it. Because now these people 4 million people have gone into the United States, disappeared into the communities. They don't show up, most only 20% at the most show up for their hearings. The rest stay hidden. We're not very good at finding them. And they live the rest of their life for a long time hiding. Who wants to hide their whole life? Wondering, looking over their shoulder, wondering who's looking at them. not being able to participate in the community, not voting, not being able to get a really good job because you don't have working papers. We need judges at the border to look at who's coming in and say yes or no at that time. Judges paid for by Congress because it's a federal law. And we would control things and people could go into the country with a green card. Wow, would that be nice? Come to the country, be judged, and have a green card, be able to go to work and support yourself and your family with the skills you have and the lifestyle you'd like. That's my opinion.
Yo creo que lo más importante de esto es que John Briscoe, he is very, very en contacto con las ideas de nuestros principios, los hispanos. Eso yo lo presiento ahorita. En noviembre 8, que son las elecciones de medio turno, midterm que le dicen, va a haber un desastre, se va a poner buena la elección, se va a poner buenísima, porque está calientita. Hay mucha gente súper enojada, no nomás por lo que uno dice, sino simplemente porque no está lo correcto, porque se hace esto y esto no quiere decir que está correcto. Lo correcto es lo correcto. Hay gente súper disgustada y enojada porque está usando sus dólares, como dice él, que el Congreso es el que hace que el dinero llegue a las comunidades y paga los biles, como paga la pared que se hizo en la frontera. El Congreso es el que adjudica el dinero. ¿Cómo crees que la gente se sienta enojadísima que una noche de repente aparezca un avión con 500 personas en una ciudad donde ni siquiera se les pidió autorización? Y de repente cae este avión con 500 personas que no deben de estar en este país y te lo acomodan ahí enfrente de tu comunidad. ¿Con qué derecho? ¿Quién está pagando por eso? Este señor que está en la Casa Blanca tiene derecho de mover a esa gente para allá y para acá y ponerla ahí en tu comunidad. Cuando tú estás pagando los impuestos y le estás pagando su sueldo a él, eso es un crimen. Ese señor está cometiendo completamente crímenes. Y la gente no hace nada. Los canales de televisión que son MSNBC, CBS, CNN y toda esa clase de canales que son particularmente son canales del Partido Azul, ellos miran todo esto y es normal para ellos, ni siquiera lo comentan. Y no es normal. Te digo, lo correcto es lo correcto. Eso no está correcto. Ellos no tienen autorización para estar moviendo todo ese persona que entra del país y lo sube en un avión a medias de la noche, te lo lleva ahí a Huntington Beach.
The right thing is the right thing, and it is very, as you can imagine, this midterm election has a lot of people quite disillusioned and upset and frustrated when they see everything that is happening around the country. Like, for example, you have an airplane with 500 people that have crossed our border illegally, and all of a sudden it arrives in an airplane to your community with taxpayer funds being the ones that are paying for all of this. What gives the right for the president, or who's making these decisions for it to be okay for taxpayers' funds to be used to transport these individuals using our taxpayers' monies, funding those moves without any kind of consent or approval from the taxpayers? The right thing is the right thing to do. So at what point do we say that's enough? As you can tell from CNN, MSNBC, all these, what I would consider more of a blue wave kind of, newscast, it kind of seemed to normalize it, that it's normal, that it's part of the process, instead of really sounding the alarm that this is not normal, that something should be done about it. What do you think can be done about it? Do you think that is right, or how do you feel about it?
O podemos hacer lo mismo que hicieron en Martha's Vineyard. En cuanto llegaron, luego se esponjaron y dijeron, no, aquí no los queremos. ¿Cuál es la diferencia? ¿Por qué razón? A ver, vamos a ver.
Or do you really think there should be some difference? Like, for example, the people that were dropped off at Martha Vineyards, and automatically they were removed and told they couldn't be there. So what makes it okay for some of these individuals to be dropped in certain states, and then not okay for them to be dropped off to other places?
Perdón, John Briscoe, es una pregunta grande, pero requiere una respuesta y una solución. Y nosotros los hispanos esperamos soluciones de parte suya para elegirlo en el Congreso, en el Distrito 42.
I understand this is a complicated and long question, but I do think that we Hispanics do need to understand how is this possible, and what are you ready to do as a congressman to address these types of concerns?
Están no todo Hispanos. There's Arabians, and there's Turkish people, and even Venezuelans. Well, they're Hispanos.
No, yeah.
There's people, all kinds of people are coming across our border without any control, without any vetting, and the process is they just come in across the border and they get checked at the border. About 25% are getaways. They just run across and nobody knows where they are. They come in, they get fingerprinted, and they get checked in. They get a piece of paper that says, come back in 2 years. 2 years or 3 years, and have your hearing. I can't hear you. Hello, hearing. Not that kind of a hearing. A hearing in front of a judge, because there's not enough judges there, and they don't come back. The return rate is maybe 20% at the most, ever come back to stand in front of the judge to plead their case. Are you a victim? Do you qualify for U.S. law? So the question, first of all, is what are United States laws about immigration based on asylum because you were abused, treated, have fear of your life in your home country? Whether it's Turkey, Syria, or Venezuela, or, in the case of my opponent, Peru. That law is the basis for everything. These aren't people coming in with a nice piece of paper saying, I'd like to move to the United States. There's 500 positions a year that are given away by lottery. I want to be one of those. And then if you're lucky, you get it. And if you're not, you're not. These are people coming across the border, claiming asylum under U.S. asylum laws for just cheating and being a getaway and running in. After that, the problem isn't the floods of people going to all these cities, whether it's the governor of Texas sending buses to D.C. and Chicago, which is kind of funny when they said they're a sanctuary city. It's not funny because they're human lives. It's a better life in Chicago with all their welfare than it is in San Antonio, Texas, actually, to go up there. But the issue isn't that, in my opinion, so much that. It's the issue of at the border, they shouldn't be able to be bussed in with a request to show up 2 and 3 years later for a hearing. We need to have judges at the border who are sitting there, and you've seen the waves of millions of people coming across, judges there to listen to the case. They get to have an attorney and decide if they're here legally under asylum, and if not, then they go back home, and that's it. And they have their fingerprints. They don't get to come back in again, I guess, unless they claim re-asylum. So no, we need to judge. If we had that, they can go all over the U.S. under our current law. If they are truly a victim of abuse, sexual abuse, or political abuse, not just poverty, but abuse, asylum basis things, then they get to stay here and they get the green card and they can go to work and have a life. And the rest need to go back home. We're not doing that now, and it's not working. So the problem isn't the flying and busing. 4 million people, it's more than 4 million. It's astounding in 2 years' time all over the U.S. The problem is we don't know if they belong here or not because they haven't been heard. They haven't had a case heard in front of a judge. And then 80% don't show up to be heard. So now we have 4 million people over 2 years, imagine over many years, living in the shadows. Can their kids get a job? Can I get a job? Can I go to work? What if I'm walking down the street and immigration and naturalization comes up to me or something? This is a terrible way to live. I don't want the residents of my 42nd Congressional District to spend their life looking over their shoulder all the time to see who's coming after them because we didn't invest enough money to have a judge at the border to say they could be here or not. Because once the judge says yes or no, that's it. Go home or stay. And we're not doing that now. It's really mean. It's cruel and unusual punishment. That's my opinion.
Yo tengo mi propio punto de vista y es importante. Como votante, me imagino que toda la audiencia que nos está escuchando ahorita a través de Facebook y Radio La Mexicanísima se sienten igual. Esto de los jueces se me hace a mí es un pequeño detalle. Porque yo he ido a corte y he visto un juez que no es un juez, que es un abogado que está trabajando por juez. ¿Por qué? Pues le llamaron. Yo no sabía que existe un libro que se llama The Penal Code, el Código Penal. And he was reading the Penal Code and he says, Mr. Miramontes, you blah, 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 this and that, you qualify for this, 2 days in jail, and you got to pay $1,000, blah, blah. So in reality, you don't need so many judges, you just need to follow the law, the Penal Code. That's one thing. The other thing is, el oponente suyo, el señor García, pienso que toda esta plataforma que usted está discutiendo ahorita aquí en nosotros, para la comunidad hispana, todo el proyecto tuyo que tú presentas es completamente diferente al de él. Ahí no hay ningún error, ni hay ninguna excusa, ni solamente un borracho se tomaría el vinito que este señor García está proyectando, porque él representa exactamente lo que está en la Casa Blanca ahorita, ¿verdad? El Partido Azul, que representa frontera abierta, crimen, apteñaña, every day, left and right, no justice, no justice. You can go and rob my car, and then you get out of jail the next day, no questions asked. Eso es lo que tu oponente está presentando para nosotros, right? Estamos hablando claro de eso. Es exactamente la misma agenda del Partido Azul, es lo que el oponente de John Briscoe está proyectando para nosotros. Y él tiene todo lo contrario.
Well, again, to me, dictionary, that's an encyclopedia.
I'll give you my perspective as a voter, which I think is a really important perspective on it. Yes, I understand what you're saying as far as immigration goes, adding more judges to be able to address the immigration issue. Though I do think that, yes, that is a fix. I do think it still remains a small detail in the sense that if people were following the law, what is happening right now would not be happening. We're allowing a lot of people to just come across the border and not following the current penal code process for immigration status. So I do think that, again, though I agree that more judges are needed, I don't believe that the actual immigration laws that are currently in place are not being followed. But I also want to point out that the opponent, your opponent, his platform really represents it's currently in the White House. A platform that, in my opinion, represents open borders. It represents that it's okay for the crime issue that we currently have. It represents the fact that there is no real justice, that a criminal can't, commit some crimes and then shortly after they're released back into the streets and we're back at it again. Nothing could be more different than what your current platform is to your opponent. And of course, it is the platform of the Democratic Blue Party. And though, yes, it is important to not talk about party affiliation, it is very important to contrast your platform versus your opponent's contrast, which is opposite of everything that you stand for. Would that be accurate?
That is accurate. Nobody wants to go to jail. Nobody, Democrat, Republican, Independent, rich or poor, wants to have a policeman come up to them, accuse them of a crime, and go to jail, go to a court, have a jury. Nobody wants those things. Even criminals don't want those because they've already been in there and they know that jail is not a good place to be. So how do we have people behave correctly so we don't have crime? Well, defunding the police is not the way to do it. Putting people in jail for a day, a week, an hour, or a minute and letting them out the next day is not the way to do it. Having trials that take, and there's no such thing as swift and speedy justice in this country anymore. That concept is in our laws. Swift and speedy justice. The idea that if you do something wrong, bam, within days, weeks, a judge and a jury and the world looks at you and says, yes, you're guilty and here's your punishment, or no, you're not guilty, go free. No, we take months, years before judgment is issued. These are all problems and they create crime. They make it so that you have to lock your doors and put bars on your windows to be safe in your own home. A man's castle, home is his castle. Well, it looks like a prison when you're inside looking out through bars. When you look out the front window and my car's parked on my front yard because I can't park it on the street, this is not a safe environment. And the lack of safety comes from people who are inclined to be crime committers. And I heard MS-13, the worst of crime committers, sneaking in across the border, behaving badly. I've read there's a requirement that MS-13 people are supposed to kill somebody before they can be considered a full, in-standing good person in the gang. These are all bad things. They're bad for family. I'm a married man, 47 years. I have a child. I don't want my child, I'm going to be a grandfather. I'm going to be in Abuelo on November 15th. we're really excited. I don't want my grandson to be worried about these things, can't even go outside, can't walk on the street, afraid to drive at night in certain neighborhoods. These are terrible things. And the way we help deal with that is, first of all, we have lots of police out looking, just police looking, walking around, driving around, patrolling. Keeps crime down, that's a fact. Defunding and taking police out is not going to help that. We have to have our police departments fully filled with employees and fully funded to what they were supposed to be before the crazy movement came. Then we have to have police out in the community, and we must arrest, and we must enforce. And letting somebody out and they say, oh, this thing called no cash bail, where you don't have to post anything to make yourself appear in court. Well, that's a brilliant thing. I'm not sure everybody understands that. It used to be if you were arrested and you went in front of a judge, the judge would either put you in jail until you had your day in court, or the judge would say, pay money and then we'll get it back, so we know you're going to show up to court and you can go back and live in your community with your family. Well, now we have this no cash bail, a low cash bail, limited bail, where people don't have to put up very much to show up, and a lot of times they don't show up. These all contribute to crime, and I oppose all of these things. They're all bad ideas. We need more police, we need police patrolling our communities, and we need to prosecute and pursue people who engage in criminal activity, unlike what we do now. The biggest, easiest one is that stupid law that says if you steal something under $900, the police department, the city attorney, won't prosecute you for your crime. The person you stole from has to go to small claims court and sue you in person for the money. No jail, no nothing, just money. These are bad ideas, they're wacko. And I don't agree with them, and I'll work to have them end.
Beautiful, beautiful, muy bien. Señor Jan Briscoe, ya vamos a cerrar. Quiero que sepa que la comunidad hispana, yo hablo por mi concepto propio, pero los conozco, soy hispano, no soy de Perú, nada en contra de los peruanos, pero la comunidad hispana de nosotros está con el corazón rompido. Es muy sentimental, está muy dolido porque ya no estamos hasta el gorro de tantos desfiles, que de tanto orgullo, hablando de la campaña de su oponente, los desfiles aquí en Downtown Long Beach, right en el pleno city. Eso ya la comunidad está súper harta de eso. Necesitamos una persona que represente en realidad el valor de la familia, así como dice usted que es uno de los nuestros. Quiero que cuando llegue allá, y si logra que por favor cruzo los dedos y llegar a ser nuestro representante en el Congreso, en el Distrito 42, me gustaría que agarre estas palabras y entienda de que la comunidad hispana está súper dolida, súper afectada dentro de sus sentimientos, que quizás no lo demuestren, porque lo que se mira, pues no se pregunta, dijo Juan Gabriel, lo que se mira, lo que está pasando ahorita no es normal en ningún aspecto, ya sea en medios de televisión o en las escuelas o en any place que llegó, no sé, tanta gente tirada en la calle, no es normal. Ya vamos a cerrar el programa, me gustaría que brevemente, más o menos, nos digas más o menos, que cierre ya y que nos eche la mano en esto para que nosotros los hispanos nos demos el 100% voto al señor Jan Briscoe.
So we're getting ready to do our closing statement, which is now, and we'd like you to close with, before I tell you to do your closing statement, I want you to know that the Hispanic community, to some degree, is heartbroken and really emotional what's happening around our community and in our culture. The unneeded parades, all the things and the values that are taken away from our family. And we stand by, maybe quietly not voicing our concerns out of frustration and it's obvious what's happening around us, but I'm hoping and praying and I'm crossing my fingers that you will make it and you will become a 42nd Congressional and Congressman. And so if that happens, what are you ready to do to ensure that our values come back to our communities? And what are you ready to do to represent what we really are all about? Family values, core values, instead of what's happening in our schools and in the TV and the cities. what are you ready to do? So in closing, tell us what you want to do for us so that we understand where you stand on these issues and that we can encourage our Hispanic community to get out there and vote for you this November 8th.
Well, I heard that one part. I need to be clear. I do not march in those parades. Whatever parades those are, I don't march in those parades. More to the point though, my son, the family man. I'm a family man. I'm one of you, as uno de nosotros. Married, I worship in a church every week. I have a child, I have children. This is the community that I'm going to represent. This is you, the 42nd Congressional District. Hardworking families with children in schools, with family celebrations, Dia de los Muertos today and Halloween. Fun stuff, serious stuff. The Congress is a serious job. We spend your money, and lots of it, billions and billions. I'm going to work to make sure the laws we pass and the money we spend is spent on family values. Things that are important to the 42nd Congressional District, the Hispanic community, of which I'm a member, I'm part of, so un poquito mexicano from my tatabuela, to make sure that we do things that build our families and secure ourselves financially with no inflation. 10% is unbelievable. Take care of our children with education choice for parents and family safety, most important, so we can walk on the street, our kids can walk to school safely. I will work on all of those for everybody in this district, regardless of Democrat, Republican, Independent. I represent everybody, and I request everybody's vote and support so I can go to Washington, D.C. and work for everybody that I represent.
A este punto, Jan, me gustaría que usted personalmente, you personal, since la señorita no está aquí para que traduzca, you personal, ask everybody who watch this show right now, this project, to share it. To share it, please share it to everybody, share it to your friends so that everybody can hear the good news. Nuevas, como dice en la Biblia, the good news, la nueva noticia.
What is good news? Please tell 10 people to vote for John Briscoe and share these broadcasts with anybody that will listen to it and look at it. We have a lot to do in the 42nd Congressional District. I look forward to doing it for you.
Amigos y amigas, hemos llegado al final de esta hora con John Briscoe, corriendo para el Distrito 42 del Congreso de Estados Unidos. Yo soy Mario Lino, a través de Facebook y Radio La Mexicanísima. Que tenga usted muy buenos días. Nos vemos mañana por este.